What deck is better for climbing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel? Maliss or Ryzeal? Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, we are discussing the two top decks. Maliss and Ryzeal. Which is better? Which one's better for climbing? What's going to suit you? And I have some stats. Now, these are entirely from me. They are entirely played in one day over one session. And generally, it's not a lot to go off of. But I'm going to give you a breakdown from what I accomplished. And then I'm going to give you more of a breakdown after that as to what this data overall entails. So here we have Ryzeal. These first 8 games from here to here are Ryzeal. We ended up going 5-3, and I have the coin flips. We went even 50-50, and yeah, we ended up winning 5 of our games and losing 3 of our games. That being said, only one of our games was not against Ryzeal, which I thought was funny. But do keep that in mind. Like, they were literally all mirror matches, which made it even more funny. Moving on, the rest of these were Maliss. So we played a lot of Maliss as well, and we lost 2 games and won 6, and overall only won 3 coin flips with 5 losses. However, we also played less meta decks. We played 5 total meta decks, consisting of Maliss and Ryzeal. Oh, I lied to you. We did play at least 1 game against Maliss in Ryzeal. 6 of our games were against Ryzeal. But we only played 1 like non-meta or not the top 2 decks in Ryzeal. Maliss we played we played a few more. We played 3 non-meta decks in our 8 games. So there's that. Or like not Maliss or Ryzeal meta decks, right? So that's pretty much it in regards to our win rate. Oh, I did say we won 3 coin flips and lost 5 with Maliss, which is statistically pretty negligible. That being said, Maliss overall did win. Now let me showcase the decks that we were playing, because they aren't exactly like... Well, I tried to take them as bare bones as I could. As basic as I could. So we have this Ryzeal list here. It's pretty standard. It's pretty simple. Not really changing a whole lot with it or doing anything to necessarily like boost my win rate or tank my win rate or something of that nature. So here is the standard Ryzeal list, or like a standard Ryzeal list. Just playing pure Ryzeal with things like the 7th Tachyon and what have you, and then a bunch of hand traps and non-engine. And then, you know, a pretty standard extra deck as well, consisting of like a searcher for Lancia and what have you. So that's pretty much it. It's a pretty standard list as well. As for the Maliss one, let me show you this one. It's another one that's pretty standard. We're not playing Terahertz. Terahertz isn't exactly standard. That being said, Topologic isn't either. So there's that. But overall, the main point is that we are playing a more standardized list, not playing things like Fiendsmith or Millennium or something else of that nature. We're playing more what generally people are playing, right? And this is more or less what it is, right? You know, a few Bestials, the Gold Sarks, all 3 of the traps, etc. So, generally speaking, they were pretty similar to what you would expect on ladder. Unless you're playing against like a terrible player who decides to play Judgment in their deck as opposed to something that actually helps them going second, because I don't know, they're stupid. Anyway, overall, which deck is better? The answer is Maliss. Maliss did better. It lost more coin flips and yet still won more games. Overall, Maliss is the better deck. Maliss is the deck that you should theoretically choose, or realistically choose. Not even theoretically, realistically, legitimately. That's the deck you should choose to climb. It did better. However, what I will say is that these two decks work so fundamentally similarly that it is basically negligible which deck you choose. Ultimately, it comes up to preference. And for the most part, I think it's Ryzeal. Ryzeal has a lot of game against a lot of decks, including against Maliss, but most notably, the big boon that I saw with Ryzeal is that it didn't rely on the opponent bricking while going second. It actually had the ability to play the game going second, and beat established boards going second, which I think makes it significantly more powerful, because if you were able to cut off something like a Maliss endboard, or a Ryzeal endboard, or something like that, and make it weaker, overall you're going to have a lot more games against them. However, Maliss is more easily able to secure games when it gets to go first. You're a lot more likely to just auto-win your game when you get to go first, because the opponent is likely going to just disconnect and be like, nope, I don't got it, you got it, have fun. Or they're likely to also just not have the outs because of the way that Maliss works. Maliss inherently has the ability to run a bunch of hand traps and a bunch of non-engine and see it consistently due to the fact that they draw up to 3 cards through their combo. So if the opponent doesn't interact with you, you're able to also see cards in hand that allow you to interact with the opponent, cards in spell trap, such as your traps in particular, which are also able to interact with your opponent, and cards in grave, which also have the ability to interact with the opponent. Kind of, to an extent, right? So overall, you're coming at the opponent from a lot of different places, which makes it a lot more difficult to deal with, you know, a board breaker or two, right? So even if they were to not hand trap you, you're probably still able to beat them with your established board. So, again, going first, you're a lot more likely to just win that game. Let's show you some replays and show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so here we are playing Maliss going first. Let's show you what this deck ultimately does accomplish here. We're going to start off here with the Gold Sark. And what makes this deck powerful is the fact that a lot of their cards just generate so much advantage. So we do have the ability to see a lot more outs to like Maxi and what have you. So there's that. We're going to go for the Chessy Cat, which they're going to hand trap as well, so we don't get that as well. But alas, it's fine. We just normal summon the White Rabbit and set the GWC anyway. We go into the Red Ransom here, is reborning our Link Decoder, and grab up the Maliss in the Underground. Then I'm stupid and activate Maliss in the Underground before going Apo, but for the most part, it's still fine. We go for the March Hare and banish the White Rabbit, which White Rabbit will then special summon itself. Now we can make the Apo. I just did this in the wrong order, but it's fine for the most part. Now we can go for the March Hare in order to special summon back the Red Ransom and to banish another March Hare, which will add itself back to hand. So now again, we have that interaction in hand. Here we're going to go for the White Binder. We're going to activate the effect of banishing specifically the... we're just banishing another name for a Heart Scripter later. That's generally what I like to use that for. And then we set the TV to get an additional body and then reborn this guy so that we can make Firewall Dragon here. And that's pretty much it. Now, this may not look like a lot, but here's ultimately what's happening. We have the Firewall for a bounce, or 2, depending on if we want to use GWC first or not. We have the Impulse, as well as 2 negates with Apo, as well as March Hare to bring back any of our other guys, which is also fairly solid. And if we were to bring back Red Ransom, we could then banish another guy in order to get an additional body onto our field. But notably, what we could do is either with March Hare or with GWC, we could then co-link as well to the Firewall Dragon and get an additional bounce off of that. And this is coming from a bunch of different places, which is what makes it so powerful. And generally speaking, we were able to see a lot of guys, which is pretty nice. Now, I could have potentially comboed a little bit more there and decided to use like GWC in order to banish our White Binder and get like an additional draw and stuff like that. So I could have seen additional cards, but I felt like this was the better option given the fact that we'd already been hand trapped twice. My opponent's going to activate the Red Eyes Fusion. We're just going to negate with Impulse, and the opponent realizes the writing on the wall and that they're not going to be able to OTK and concedes. Good game. Alright, so here we are going second, and yeah, we drew Maxi Fool Loss, which is pretty good. My opponent's going to reveal that they are on the Ryzeal, so they're going to grab up Sword here, and you might be wondering why are we not activating our Maxi to get the max draws, because I'm almost certain they have some sort of out to it, so I want to bait it with Fool Loss, which wouldn't make sense to activate here, so that we can then Maxi on follow-up. We're going to go for the Fool Loss here, they're going to go for the Ash Blossom in response, and then I'm going to go for the Maxi here. They're then going to normal summon Fua as if it does something here, and then make Detonator. Detonator is going to attach Aggregator, and at this point the game is pretty much over for them because we have the triple attack and the Ext anyway, so there's that. We're going to summon out the Ext here, and we are going to then activate the effect of Ext and activate the effect of Aggregator. They're going to then activate their Imperm to play around triple attack, of course. But alas, it doesn't really matter because if I have any follow-up in hand, they're dead anyway, so I normal summon the Ice and they concede. Yeah, good game. Alright, real quick, let's talk about the pros and cons to both decks. I've already talked about this a bit generally, but overall, Maliss is very, very good at winning games going first, whereas Ryzeal does lose a little bit more, but has more game going second. Those are the overall ups and downs of both of those. Maliss is a more linear combo deck, not more linear. It is a more standard combo deck where basically you learn the combo and then you win the game from there. Ryzeal requires you to kind of understand a little bit more about the opponent's decks and what generally they would be playing and would be implementing so that you can more effectively interact with them. That being said, Detonator does just kind of kill a lot of decks, so there's that. Just keep that in mind. What else? Oh, the biggest benefit I would say that Detonator has, or not Detonator, Ryzeal has, in regards to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, is that Ryzeal doesn't need to specifically play standard. You can play a go second build like this, like we've played previously. You can play anti-meta stuff. You can play additional engine with like the super heavy samurai stuff or with like the fiendsmith stuff. So there's a lot more options available to you in Ryzeal, whereas with Maliss, while there is stuff that you can do, like I used to, I was playing this, which was basically a way to play around Lancia when everyone was playing Lancia, but you could still play like the fiendsmith stuff if you really wanted to. That's not terrible, but for the most part, this is kind of the best option. It's just Maliss, which means that there's less options available to you in regards to Maliss in general for variety and for a way to kind of combat the metagame and play around what people are playing into you, right? That being said, Maliss doesn't necessarily need that to perform as well, but Ryzeal gets a big boon from that by being able to be more creative with it. So, creativity versus consistency. That's more or less what these come down to. If you enjoy creativity, if you enjoy more of the nuance of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and like trying to one-up your opponent, Ryzeal's going to do a bit better. Whereas if you enjoy just the consistency and being able to more consistently do your combos and win games off of that, and kind of just seeing that overall more game-to-game, you know, consistency, for lack of a better term, Maliss is the deck for you. That being said, both of them really work very similarly. They both functionally win games going first and have trouble going second, but Ryzeal is a little bit better at going second. They both still are extremely powerful in comparison to pretty much everything else. The biggest downside is playing against other of these two top decks, where it becomes way more problematic because generally they're just going to have more interaction for you. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They're so much farther above everything else that, as far as I'm concerned, you can play either one and you'd do exceptional. So there's that. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.